I think my experience in the military, to include moving past Goldwater Nichols in 1986, is probably a strength and a weakness in the way I look at this. But I think what we're talking about here is as if we were a couple of years into Goldwater Nichols and trying to review what the military services and how they were organizing jointly and how effective they were. So we're early on in this process, and I really do appreciate the efforts to be focused more on unity of effort and more joint in the way we address these issues. We're in a resource-constrained environment for sure, as many of you have referenced. My first thought, Admiral Schultz, when I was looking and deep diving into JTF East and what you're doing is, it seems like there is potential for redundancy with JIATIS South. Now I realize they have a specific mission and authorities, but we all have the same objective here, right? To interdict transnational criminal organizations and illicit flow of traffic coming from South and Central America into the United States. And so when I know there's different authorities, but we're responsible for authorities here. But we have similar objectives here as a country. When we're talking about interagency, whole of government, specifically to address the issues more in the maritime domain, I think about, if you have two different operation centers, two different computer systems, overhead, all that comes with that, is there a way for us to think outside the box? And can you just comment, based on your experiences also at Southcom, right? You're at Southcom. On, is there a place for us to look freshly at the JTF East is focused on Homeland Security. JIATF South is trying to be more and more the interagency focused area. Like, where is there a place that we can find better synergies, perhaps, even between those two efforts, so that we're not, even on overhead and air conditioning bills, spending where we don't need to, just to have more of a unity of effort?
Well, Chairwoman, thank you for the question. And clearly, there's always a better way to look at every problem set. I would say, I think you have an understanding of JIATF South. They've been in existence here for about 26 years now. It is probably the most recognized global interagency operation that gets after the counter threat network, particularly for drugs. That's their origin, and that's really where their authorities lend them. Under 10 U.S.C. 124, they do the detection and monitoring business for the Department of Defense. They have no law enforcement authorities, as you know, with your defense background and homeland duties, and that's where they turn over the end game to either our 7th or 11th District Coast Guard operations. I think where you see the task force, Joint Task Force East and JIATF South lash up is they're very complementary. We try to leverage what they call the critical movement alert system. We just did some recent operations back in November, as I mentioned in my oral statement here, most recently in the last couple of weeks of March, surge operations down in Puerto Rico on the U.S. Virgin Island Puerto Rico vector. That's a vector where there's quite a bit of cocaine coming out of South America. There's a lot of violence, weapons, money moving back south through Puerto Rico. And JIATF's focus, because it's resource informed like everything else in the federal government, has been very much in the Eastern Pacific, in the Western Caribbean. About 85% of the drugs that come out of Colombia are in the Eastern Pacific. But there's also threats in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, part of our U.S. soil here, we've got some responsibilities down there. JIATF and us work there. We're able to enhance unity of effort with the DHS components. We're able to link, and I think this works well with my dual status as the Coast Guard Atlantic Area Commander. I have operational forces east of the Rockies and the task force. We can work in that space where we bring resources to the DHS components. We link in DoD capabilities, a linkage with JIATF South, and we get after the threats most pressing to the homeland. So I think they're complementary. Could there be an eventual changing of authorities for JIATF South? I think so. But I think if you look at the origins, if you look at the resourcing right now, there's some muscle movements there that are fairly significant to tackle. In the interim period, I think we are working very well together, and I think, again, the military status that I bring dual-hatted allows some linkages there. My recent experience in Southcom, I think, also plays well to that, because bringing the heft of DoD and all that capability and capacity down to working with an HSI attaché or a small team in a foreign location or even a place like Puerto Rico, there's different lexicon there. And I think that's sort of that middle space we work very well in, ma'am.
Absolutely, and I would like to follow up with you, again, just to think outside the box, whether there needs to be new authorities to look at this freshly for the best, at this moment in time, whole of government approach, to address this problem set. Chief Beeson, looking to the organization for JTF West and its division into corridors, are those corridors perfectly aligned with the sectors? And if not, Is there an opportunity for us to align sectors to corridors so we're all operating in similar areas? Just again, as we're evolving this process, if your Border Patrol sectors are your ground force of this joint force, and your, the JTF is looking jointly at each corridor, is a way to line those up if they're not lined up? Is that being looked at all?
I want to say that they are aligned. As I think about the corridors, there are four. The California corridor, which covers the two sectors in California. Arizona corridor covers the two Arizona sectors. West Texas, New Mexico covers two sectors. And then you got the South Texas, which has three, the Laredo, Del Rio, and Rio Grande Valley. So each one of those corridors has a commander that is responsible for the coordination, collaboration of the DHS efforts. And so I think that the way that they're aligned, if I understand your question correctly, I think works.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm over my time. Chair, and I'll recognize Mr. Bailiff for 5 minutes.